Welcome to Bless Your Heart, a special segment of Sunday Night Live where verses are stitched back into context with some love. I am your host, Trenton Barksdale, and I look forward to enjoying some time with you. Let's sit for a while. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today's episode of Bless Your Heart is going to be a bit of a shocker. Some of you may scratch your heads and wonder, how are these verses taken out of context? By the time we finish this video, you'll be able to understand why. Let's take our Bibles and read 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 1 through 4 together. And as we go through it, you'll be able to see why these verses are taken out of context. 1 Corinthians 15, starting in verse 1, says, "Now I make known to you, brothers, the gospel which I proclaimed as good news to you, which also you received, in which also you stand, by which also you are saved, if you hold fast the word which I proclaimed to you as good news, unless you believe for nothing. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures." By now you're probably wondering why I'm suggesting these verses are taken out of context. There's two reasons. Number one, many people will say that the gospel is only the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And number two, these same individuals and groups will say that all one has to do is believe what is listed here to be saved. Let's address each argument together and see how the opening verses of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 are indeed removed from their context. The first argument, again, is that the gospel is only the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. However, that is not what Paul says. Notice again how he says in verse 3 that he again says he delivered to them as of first importance. This means that this is the springboard from which everything else flows. To preach anything from the Old and or New Testament, it is in light of what Jesus did on the cross and his resurrection. As he would say earlier in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, Paul would tell the Corinthian church there that he desired to know nothing among them except Jesus Christ and him crucified. That's the same thing. When I preach about baptism being necessary for salvation, I do so in light of Christ's death and resurrection. When I preach about keeping his commandments, I do so in light of the most important facts. Jesus died for my sins. He was buried and raised again on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures. The second argument, again, is how the same people that make the erroneous argument that the gospel is only the death, the burial, and resurrection of Christ make another mistake in saying that one only has to believe in it. If you notice again what was said in verse 2, they said there again that they had received the gospel. How did they receive the gospel? Well, we read in Acts chapter 18 and verse 8 that when Paul goes to the Corinthians themselves and preaches to them, it shows that they heard, believed, and were baptized. They didn't just believe, but they were baptized as well. Also, while I do believe in how the Gospels show this to be true about Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, and I do trust in the gospel as the power of God to salvation per Romans chapter 1, verse 16, I do so because of how the things recorded in the Gospels were not made up. They were eyewitnessed by people. I want you to notice again, going back to 1 Corinthians 15, we're going to start reading in verse 5 and go down through verse 11, and we're going to see what Paul would say about these witnesses. Starting in verse 5, he would go on to say, "And that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom remain until now, but some have fallen asleep or died. After that, he appeared to James, then to all the apostles, and last of all, as to one untimely born, he appeared to me also. For I am the least of the apostles, and not worthy to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace toward me did not prove vain. But I labored even more than all of them. Yet not I, but the grace of God with me. Whether then it was I or they, so we preach, and so you believe. Friends, Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection is the foundation for what any gospel preacher worth his salt will preach. He does so and encourages others to believe, not just because he says it is true, but because of the eyewitness testimony. Anyone can believe it, but those who have an honest heart will receive it in the same way God has said to do so. The Corinthians did, and we can too. God bless everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.
Which verse do you think we should consider next? Comment below or send us a message on Facebook or Discord with your suggestions. Y'all come back now, here